Okay, I believe we left off talking about the difference between dialect and accent, so we're going to start with be clear. It's very important that you're clear in the message that you want to get across to the reader, and that really also reflects injecting your opinion. Historical information and essays refer to facts or things that have happened. Even if you're giving a suggestion or a reason as to why or how something happened, you have to provide evidence as to how that is a possibility. So leave out I think, I feel, I believe, no opinions. Use figures of speech sparingly. This is important. It also goes back to being clear. And definitely don't take a shortcut at the cost of clarity. Obviously, those go together. It is much more important to be clear than to take a shortcut. Like I said earlier in class, I know we want to omit useless or needless words, but at the same time, if doing so is going to cost you your clarity and the message that you're trying to get across, don't take that shortcut. Prefer the standard to the offbeat. Hopefully you guys understand what this means. Generally follow the rules. Don't get silly with your writing. Hopefully you're picking up on the theme here of your focus on writing in a historical style and your essays. It's very important that you stick to a style when you write historically and when you write these essays. And writing sentences in history are also important. It's not just about your approach. You want to choose verbs that are precise. That goes back to being clear, being direct, being bold. Preferably write in the past tense. If that changes the meaning of the statement to where the meaning is incorrect or it doesn't fit with what you're trying to get, what you're trying to say, then you don't have to necessarily write in the past tense. But remember, you are writing about things that have already happened. Avoid split infinitives if possible. An infinitive is a verb that's not conjugated. So, for example, to fight is an infinitive. To see is an infinitive. To write is an infinitive. Okay, there's no subject to change that verb or to conjugate that verb to give it an action. So avoid the split infinitive. Don't write to blank and then write. Okay? Or to blank and see. Or to blank jump. Whatever it is. Okay? Obviously, put your ideas in intelligible order. This goes back to what we were talking about in class with the suitable design. You want to have a nice, strong, workable flow to your writing. An intelligible order could mean a chronological or a geographical. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of those, just some type of an intelligible order. Okay, avoid pretentious language. What is pretentious language? Pretentious language is using words and a style and coming across with this an assumption of an exaggerated dignity or importance. Your demeanor is that you're better than everyone else. So avoid pretentious language. Try not to write like that. And also avoid colloquial language. A colloquial language is language that portrays the characteristics of conversational speech or rather informal speech. Don't write the same way that you talk. Your writing should, generally for most people, of course depending on who they're speaking to, their writing should definitely be more formal and be better than how they speak. Because most of the time when we speak it is conversational or it is informal. And your writing should be a much higher level than that. Be sensitive to the politics of diction. Diction is word choice. Of course, this is following the colloquial language and the pretentious language, right? That has to do with your word choice. So definitely be sensitive to that. Pay attention to those kind of things. We were talking about earlier today in class. You want to be bold as opposed to weak. You want to be direct as opposed to vague, right? Clear and concise, and concrete. So definitely pay attention to your word choice. And that also goes back to writing with nouns and verbs as opposed to adjectives, right? You don't want to overwrite. Okay, so pay attention to that. Avoid euphemisms. Euphemisms are the substitution of a vague expression for one thought to be offensive or harsh. And people actually do this more often than they realize. So you definitely want to try and avoid substituting a vague expression for something that could be considered harsh or offensive. And you might be thinking, a euphemism, it's like it's a mild or indirect word or even a phrase that's considered too harsh or blunt when you're referring to something that might be embarrassing or unpleasant. Right? Like downsizing is a euphemism for cuts. Right? Downsizing the company, cutting out your employees, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. To pass away is a substitute for dead or dying, right? Okay, so avoid using euphemisms. Choose figurative language carefully. Figures of speech generally not a good idea when you're writing, especially in a historical sense. This can sometimes really just get out of hand when you're trying to write. Figures of speech are words or phrases that are used in a non-literal sense to add this, force to written language. So, definitely avoid a figure of speech. Similes, metaphors, hyperboles, even personification. Try and avoid those figures of speech. You don't necessarily have to use those to further explain an idea. Okay? And so, I was just talking about figures of speech. That leads us into metaphors and similes. Use them judiciously. That means exercise good judgment. Okay, I'm fully aware that sometimes a simile or a metaphor is necessary. But the whole idea is that you don't overuse them. So you have to pay attention to that. And definitely avoid cliches. Cliches, everyone knows what those are. Stereotyped or overused expressions. Not a good idea when you're writing really any type of an essay. Whether it's in history or English or any of your other classes. Cliches, just not a good idea. This is a phrase, and sometimes even an opinion, that's definitely overused. It can be stereotyped. Really lacks original thought. So, what is it? One man's trash is another man's treasure. That's a cliche. Don't write like that. Okay? If you have any questions about any of this information pertaining to writing sentences in history or writing with the historical style, using correct grammar, please come in. I'll help you. I'll clarify what I can. And the best thing for you is to revise and rewrite, edit, edit, edit. Because I guarantee the more that you edit, the better your writing will be. And it's also a really good idea, once you've written something, to read it out loud, because it always sounds differently when you hear it with your ears as opposed to when you hear it inside your head. So, if you have the opportunity to ever read anything out loud when you're editing, always read it out loud. Because sometimes you'll hear it and you go, oh yeah, that's not what I meant to say. And you have to change your statement. So, definitely do that. But again, if you have any questions over any of this, I will gladly help you. And remember, when I'm grading and you feel like, gosh, you just tore up my essay, it's not because you did bad, it's because I'm going to make you a better writer. Okay, keep that in mind. You will, I guarantee, by the end of this year, you'll think differently, you'll think critically, you'll be able to examine things in great depth, you'll see things that you never saw before, and I guarantee you'll be a better writer in history and in English. And that's my goal. And by all means, if you have information that you've already written or essays you've already written, you want me to look over them, give you some ideas, hey, I'm here to help. And it doesn't even have to be something from our class. Okay, there you go.